this whole thing was Kim's brainstorm. She said, there's a lot of this stuff that's coming into our inboxes and Russian interference in elections, and what's it all about? How can we figure it out, and what can we do about it? And Kim's the one who did the research into it, put all this together. She connected with a man in Manhattan who has made this kind of his life's work, I guess, or certainly his professional. Okay, Renee, Justin Hendricks and
Renee DeResta, who you'll hear from Renee.
Right.
She's in this.
So there, the efforts of Shannon from Indivisible Westchester, together with Indivisible New Rochelle and CD17, we, as Mark said, Justin and
Justin Hendricks, who's also he's in social media. He works in the area of social media influencers and social media and society. Okay, he heads up the New York City Media Lab.
So they all did this presentation at the Yonkers Library in Yonkers early in the summer. Kim has taken over a lot of it. She did the presentation to the Indivisible statewide meeting in Albany a couple of months ago. I believe you did one for Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, 2 weeks
recently
ago.
Did for Planned Parenthood, and now for Northern Westchester. So Kim is one of the co-leaders. She's the co-leader of Indivisible New Rochelle, and she's been very active in all of our resistance work, and this is one of her most impressive events. So, Kim Snyder.
Yay! And should we dim the lights?
Yeah.
Alrighty. So.
On the right.
Boom. Oh, okay.
That's right.
Is that okay?
Sounds like being at the Disinformation movies. Okay. Kim Snyder here. I work in the field of data for my job, and I have been interested in social media. I help nonprofit clients do more with less resources. That's what I've been doing professionally for years and years. And a lot of times we end up talking about social media and marketing and stuff like that with my client work. And then when I started to see what was happening with the Trump campaign, I kind of thought, ooh, the wrong people are being really smart about this, okay? They're using tools that are available and being smart. So this is a primer, and it's funny, Bruce was saying, I do have some revised content in here from a Planned Parenthood talk I gave a couple weeks ago, and have yet some more revised content from earlier today, because this is the world we're in, okay? So I'm going to give you a little bit of context, and we're going to take a step back in time to 2016. And so the Mueller report, Russia interfered in our elections in a sweeping and systemic manner, right? That, I think, was one of the first 2 sentences of Volume 1, Chapter 1. Okay, that's a statement about what happened. And then the report goes on for 400 odd pages. As he was saying, as he was giving this talk, he said they are continuing to do it now. We're all seeing this in the context today of this, impeachment insanity and trying to get, Ukraine was really behind it. It was really the DNC, and it's just like crazy town, okay? But Russia interfered with our elections in 2016, okay? And the Mueller report is 478 pages that basically talks about that happening, all right? Basically, what it was is an information war, okay? And if you think about war, it's just a different battlefield. The battlefield of this war is social media, right? It happens on social media platforms. And when you think about it, that's kind of an easier, cheaper way to fight what turned out to be a pretty effective war. When I think about Hillary Clinton, lost by 78, I'm rounding up, 78,000 votes across 3 purplish states, and kind of had certain districts were tipped in those states. And that basically gave Trump the election, okay? That's using data in a smart way to target audiences that can be influenced in certain swing districts. They're just doing smart stuff with data, okay? That's what you can do, right? The thing that was criminal was the Cambridge Analytica data and where they got some of the data that they used to target. That aside, so when you think about it, for maybe a couple $1 million, right? They launched this war from St. Petersburg and were able to get into our society and influence an election. That's pretty effective war strategy, right? And that is what it is. And I feel like sometimes I think, oh, don't be so hyperbolic. Like just, don't. But no, it's an information war, and they kind of infiltrated the community, and we will talk about some of that. And that's how the influence happened. And in some ways, it's more deep within than if they had dropped bombs on us. Okay, the U.S. has a ton of firepower. You don't want to fight us like militarily, all right? This was where the war happened. We were not at all ready. Okay, so when you think about in Russia, in St. Petersburg, the Internet Research Agency, and that's the group that was given an indictment as part of Mueller's findings, right? The 17 odd Russians who were indicted. Okay, this was part of the Internet Research Agency. There were about 1,000 state-paid employees. They were like, dudes in their 20s. It was a good job, out of college. They, in the course of that campaign, there were about 126 million reaches on Facebook, 20 million Instagram, another 10.4 million tweets, and 1,000 odd videos that got propelled God knows where, right? This was, the content that went out there. When you think about 78,000 votes in crucial swing areas, did you ever wonder about why Donald Trump was having those rallies in the towns he was having them in? Okay, those were also data-informed decisions. You get places where it's always been kind of a mix. It's not really hard red. It's not, it's always kind of blows with the weather, right? You get those kinds of districts that have that composition, right? So this is the level of content. Who in here, do people know the difference between bots and trolls? And I'm happy to explain it briefly.
No.
Go for it, okay. So you will hear these terms a lot. A bot is actually software. So a bot is something that is programmed, and it does, it can make things like repetitive actions like clicks and likes, and even some basic simple semantic shares and commenting, right? They can be programmed to comment. So some repetitive actions that can be done exponentially, like a gazillion times, that's a bot. Okay, so clicks, likes, shares. So, somebody sends something out on Twitter and it's like got a zillion likes and blah, blah, and then people talk about bots, propelling things back and forth and bots to other bots. And okay, so a bot though is software. That's the thing to remember. A troll is actually a person posing as one or more identity, hundreds of identities, 2 identities. We're being trolled, actually. Mark Clapper from Invisible Westchester messaged me last night and said, "Are you being trolled by this, I don't know, Westchester resident?" And it's like, oh man, it's one of these New Rochelle. We've got like really nasty trolls in New Rochelle. So it's people who hide behind these identities, and they're acting as someone else, right? So he like insults us. So big deal, right? The trolls in this case posed as American people, okay? So that's also fake. They're getting in. They pose as American people with names, just like normal American names, sounded like Americans. I mean, in the context of social media shares, and I will say, the Internet Research Agency had a whole strategy. They studied our news. They knew our news that would seem sometimes better than we knew our news. And they followed events in the news, which you'll see actually momentarily. Okay, so how does all this stuff work, right? How does, like, why Facebook, why Twitter, why these platforms? Facebook and platforms like it, Instagram, Twitter, but especially Facebook, I'd say Facebook and Instagram, these are businesses. They make money, basically. They're not like for the goodness of connecting people, right? They're there to make money. And so it's all about viral advertising and getting people to look at their screens longer, okay? So getting people, because you think about it, people create the content, right? So Facebook isn't creating this content. So someone else is creating it, doing all that work. People create it, they share it, it gets pushed. If it's sticky, in other words, if people look at it longer, so right, the longer you're on it, the more ads you see, the more money. Okay, basically that's the formula. And so with attention being the currency of this, these platforms are kind of built for viral propulsion of content. Is anyone curating this? No, right? Freedom of speech. So these platforms then become engines for pushing out content of all kinds, all right? So Renee DiResta, who does a better job of explaining this than I do, Renee was one of the people who did this study for the United States Senate Intelligence Committee on the Russian troll posts in Facebook. She looked at, God knows, hundreds of thousands of Facebook posts and did the analysis. She is a deep data person, and she's one of the people that we had come and speak at CD16 for the Disinformation Forum. And it was actually her work in this that really got me fascinated. And so there's about a 4-minute video of her explaining how this works. And I feel like it's important for us to hear.
So when you are trying to make a piece of content reach massive quantities of people, what we see time and time again, whether the
Can you hear this?
disinformation actor is a state actor, which I'll go into, something like Russia, or whether it's a domestic ideologue or a group of trolls, they follow this process.
Battery 90%. Connected to
Let me just-
MacBook Pro and KIM's MacBook.
Sorry.
And the targetability, the ability of a platform to decide that you are going to see a piece of content because it's most suited to you. So the way that that happens is, let's call them trolls for the, it's a nice broad term. Trolls will gather in communities where they will plan an operation. Okay, so they'll say, we're going to get a piece of content trending. We are going to push an idea into the mainstream. And so they will conceive of a campaign and they'll coordinate it. And then the next step is to take advantage of democratized content creation tools. So anyone can make a video, they can throw it up on YouTube, they can throw it up on Vimeo, if they make a meme, they can put it up on Imgur. So what they're doing there is they're actually posting the content, which is free to create, onto platforms that themselves have virality engines. So YouTube itself has a curation engine. YouTube itself has a pattern by which it's going to choose what you're going to see. So even at the very early stages of this, there's this algorithmic curation component that's taking, even the platforms that are repositories for content are also themselves amplification tools. So following that, they're going to take their content and they're going to push it out to the mainstream. And so they go to what we call the kind of main campaigning platforms. And those are the platforms where billions of people are on them. So Facebook, 2 billion people, I think. Twitter, 350 million, I think. And so what you see there is the place by which they're able to reach massive numbers of people by taking the content and putting it onto a mainstream platform. Following that, if they are successful in reaching a sufficient number of people on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, what you'll see is this kind of crossing of the chasm where, let's use the Pelosi video because it's so recent, you see that go viral on Facebook, right? So the video goes up, it's on YouTube, it's on Facebook organic, it's on Facebook natively, it goes viral on Facebook, it gets some lift on Twitter. It gets some lift on YouTube, and then it crosses the chasm when Fox News picks it up and airs it. So you have this process, it's almost like a disinformation assembly line where people decide that they're going to create content. I think in the case of Pelosi, there was one guy it has been attributed to. There's still some gray areas about whether that was done in concert with other people, and he was just the guy who posted it, or he was also the creator. But so it follows this process, this kind of assembly line, and then it makes it into mainstream news. And then what happens is very interesting, because mainstream news channels have hundreds of millions of people, and so that piece of content has now made its way to the nightly news, where even people who are not online see it. And so you have this full spectrum from kind of conception to making it onto the nightly news, and it happens very quickly, a day, maybe sometimes a couple hours. What the other papers do, though, is they start to debunk it, and so it actually hits more people's awareness when the mainstream media goes and debunks it also. And then you have some other problems associated with how effective debunking is. That's sort of in the psychological literature. Things like the backfire effect indicate that maybe it's not always the most effective. Jury's still out on that. But ultimately, you have it so that it follows this process. If the media doesn't report on it, then the media is sometimes accused of being biased or not covering a story, so they wind up in a double bind, where the question becomes, do you report on it credulously, do you try to debunk it? If you ignore it, conspiratorial media will come in and fill the void and ask why mainstream media is ignoring it. So if you can get to trending on Twitter or viral on Facebook, the game is kind of over at that point. It's going to become a story.
Right, so that's the pathway, right? And you think about the Nancy Pelosi video, right? We all saw something about that, and it was basically faked, right? And how many of you? This is like a true confession question. When she recently made the statement about the impeachment, did any of you watch that saying, "Oh, she doesn't look like someone could slow this down and make her look drunk"? That's what I was thinking. Okay, and because I can't get it out of my head, this slowed down video. Okay, and so people who really aren't prone to liking her, right? So the purpose of this, though, was not necessarily to elect Donald Trump. The purpose of this intrusion, because I'm still talking about Russia, the purpose of it is really to cause chaos in Western, democracies, right? Look at Brexit, right? Whole similar path there, right? It's the very same stuff. All right, so this is not about Republican, Democrat, Green Party, none of that. Okay, it was about causing chaos, right? And so you think about how do they cause chaos? Because the more disrupted we are as a society, and if you look at it, we're pretty disrupted these days, right? So one of the big ways that this was done was by the troll created identities, right? So this is trolls posing as what sounds like very American sounding identities, right? The Tennessee GOP, LGBT United, Blacktivists, right? These sound like American groups, right? But they're not. These were created by the trolls in the IRA, right? So here's a story about something that happened with one of these groups of trolls, right? So we had two groups of trolls. Remember, there were a whole bunch of them working in the same office, so they could coordinate because they were only sitting right around the corner from each other. All right, so the Heart of Texas, all right, that group, and you'll see this, the Heart of Texas, 253,000 people like this group. Okay, so this got lit. This was an old bot, okay? These are accounts, these are Americans. All right, and then we have another group, United Muslims of America, also Russia created, 328,000 people liked that group, okay? So these are groups on Facebook, people liking them, it's all, right? And then there's going to be the opening of a new library at the Islamic Center in Houston, Texas. So the Heart of Texas fake group posts at 12 noon on Saturday, May 21st, stop the Islamization of Texas rally, right, near the library. And then also on May 21st, also at noon, right across the street, was the United Muslims of America Facebook group, Save Islamic Knowledge. It's the library. We've got to, rally for our culture, right? These two groups ended up being right across the street from each other. This was planned from Russia, okay? So when I talk about war, right, I mean, it's actually works, right? It's descriptive. Now, how did they do this? There were no Russians here doing this. Okay, so when you're on Facebook, you friend people, not all of them you know, and it's like, so you're in this group, and, it's like, oh man, I was gonna be there, and I was gonna coordinate this, the rally, and I've gotta do something with my family, and can you help me out and be there? Can you be boots on the ground for me? Thanks. All right, so from Russia, coordinated. No Russian people needed to do this, and you have these rallies with two groups of people going at each other. And what is that? That's chaos in America. Okay, that's what chaos in America looks like. All right. So around the election, it was about fueling rage on the one hand, on the right, these immigrants. Hillary's anti-Christian. You're voting against Jesus. So it was, and people were bombarded by this crap. You can keep pushing stuff out all day long, especially when you have a paid crew of 1,000 people, right? Okay, on the left, and it was very targeted to certain groups, okay? Blacktivists, target African Americans, LGBT United, they went after the gay people who were pissed off about Bernie Sanders, okay, not getting in. They kind of drove a wedge there, right? So don't trust Hillary, she's a liar, right? Oh, vote for Jill Stein, okay? God knows, I don't know, there's something going on there. But anyway, vote third party. Could have been Swiss cheese. It was go third party, don't go vote. And finally, don't go to the polls on election day. You can vote by text. Did you know that?
Yeah.
So, 78,000 votes across 3 purpley states. I don't know. What do you think? All right. So fast forward to today. All right. They're a lot closer to home, and they still thrive where there's division. Okay, that's what it's about. It's about chaos. Now, the playbook is here. Make no mistake. Okay, so we got build the wall. We have, so immigration is a big issue, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this in specifics. Okay, but certain issues that are red button issues for candidates, and we think about our local candidates here, okay, in Westchester and in New York State. We're going to need to be thinking about our candidates who voted yes on RHA, on green light, on things like that. We're going to think about how can we help, starve the oxygen out of these disinformation campaigns, all right? And you think about today, they have we have our own. I was so proud, right? Indivisible grows up, we have our own fake troll sites, right? This one, the top one, was a whole ecosystem. So they had a web page, Twitter, Facebook, and you could donate money to this group. Now, when you think about trying to, and I don't even know if they're in Russia or maybe Texas, who knows? But they aren't indivisible. They aren't other indivisible people. And when you think about if I were to plan an indivisible rally somewhere and someone had donated money or signed up to be on the list and like this group, those are the people I'd reach out to say, oh man, I can't be there on the day of. Can you do this rally for me? So these are a couple, and this was another, join the resistance. This was, we had just had the other week. We had the march on Washington, the We the People march, right? And Shannon actually was a spotter of this one, right? What was it? It was the fake logo. You see, you can learn this stuff.
Right.
It was the logo, and it's this one looks really bogus. It just doesn't smell right, right? And I'll show you some tips. And sure enough, it like did not pass the test. And then you look at the content that they're posting, right? Antifa. Okay, the far right, I'm gonna take a detour for a second. The far right has a disinformation love affair with Antifa, okay? Because that's the violent left. Okay, so the El Paso shooting, there was a whole ton of disinformation that went around about that being an Antifa inspired. It was actually Antifa that did that shooting, okay? Because they like dress in scary clothes and look kind of menacing and, you know, that persona. So Antifa, so that's where this kind of set off some alarm bells for me, because if you associate something like the We the People March with Antifa, you're going to get those serious Trumpers with guns showing up, all right? So keep your third eye out, your disinformation eye out for disinformation. Like when you hear Antifa being thrown around, just think about it. So, and far-right social media influencers, okay? So it's not just Russia, all right? So here we had Epstein committed suicide, okay? And then Terrence K. Williams, who is a far-right social media influencer, he's got like a zillion followers on Twitter, all right? He, starts this, they're saying, oh, suicide, yeah, right, sure, it was the Clintons. Hashtag Clinton body count. Like, and then someone actually posted that, like for real, right, according to the logs, the last known visitor. Like, I mean, you think, but it had like a whole bunch of likes. It was like, really? And it was some right-wingy person. So people, you know, I mean, who was it? You said when Barr resigned, I was like, for a second, you want this to be true, right? So this got traced. Okay, this was in hours, a matter of hours. We had Clinton body count, right, and Clinton crime were trending when Epstein committed suicide. All right, I think eventually later in the day, the Trump body count, but at that point, who was looking anymore, right? And there's some folks on the left and Twitter who do analysis all the time. There's kind of this guy that said, look, all this crap that's coming out of this one, and then you got Donald Trump Jr. like retweeting him, and that's all you need, right? And then it's over, game over. And then so Justin Hendricks, he was the other speaker. Who knew today would be the Disinformation World Cup, right? And this was in a matter of a few hours. You had all this insanity all happening like in this universe, right? You had, and this was the Nancy Pelosi video, right? Some dude slowed it down. I think he was in the Bronx somewhere, and pushed it out. Renee DeRestis thing, you make it trend, you make it true. Okay, popularity, something trending trumps, if you'll pardon the word, the truth, right? So that was all over the place. And we all know in our head somewhere is like, she wasn't drinking, was she? No, she doesn't drink. Okay, right. All right, then we had slander sites. All right, this is another thing that happened. And you can't believe it. Like, Bernie Sanders even, I thought they were on the ball with social media, No one bought the .info web domains, right? So Bernie Sanders .info, Kamala Harris .info, right? That's the domain extension. Elizabeth Warren, Biden. Okay, Biden, because he was late to announce, his fake site, yes, Mir?
Can you explain that?
What?
Bought the domain?
Oh, bought the domain, the URL. So when you have a web address, she corrects me when I'm talking geek. Feel free, anyone else. So, they purchased these. So, so when we, for example, when we get somebody's, domain, like ShellyMayer.org, ShellyMayer.com, or ShellyForSenate.com and .org. So you buy these so that someone else doesn't, and then make a sham out of it, okay? But none of these folks, and this is presidential, buying JoeBiden.info would have cost the campaign $12. You basically buy them all up, is what you do, right? .us, you know.
US, sorry.
So he was late to announce, right? So Joe Biden .info had more traction than his actual website. Okay, so when you typed in into Google Joe Biden, you got that one first for a while until his started to gain some traction, right? So, and Biden fake one was so popular that they sold t-shirts. You kind of want to go and buy one, right? But they, and each of them, look, I mean, they're playing off of, you know, parodies of, you know, things that, you know, are out there. All right. Who's heard of Brad Parscale?
No.
Okay, not so many of you, right? All right. So Brad Parscale is the devil himself. He, in 2016, was the social media director for Trump's campaign. He is now, in 2020, the campaign director, okay, the whole kit and caboodle. Right, what does that tell you? That's quite a promotion, don't you think? This was a dude who made like kind of cool websites in 2014, 15. That's what he did. But you know what? He's wicked smart with data. Really, really smart, okay? I don't know if we have people on our side that are that smart with data. We should, because certainly the platforms, you know, like Silicon Valley's like left-wing central, right? I don't know where our people are. This guy is smart and evil. Huh? So, just to kind of give you another piece of terminology, and you'll hear this with some of these issues that come down to like the RHA, and we're gonna need to be defending that, okay?
Yeah.
And also green light, any of these controversial bills that we cared about, things that help immigrants and people and healthcare and stuff like that, okay? This is all ripe for being maligned. Okay, so you will hear the word misinformation being bandied about, and you'll hear disinformation. I'm not going to talk malinformation, just so that you know what it means, but we're not going to really talk about it. Malinformation is like when they stole the emails and dropped them on WikiLeaks. So that's like stolen stuff, okay? Misinformation and disinformation are information that is incorrect, okay? And the basic difference between these two kinds of not correct information is that misinformation is often the realm of the unintentional, right? You didn't do it with evil intent, right? Disinformation, you are deliberately trying to manipulate and mess with somebody, or, you know, you've got an agenda you're pushing, and you are deliberately manipulating information. Misinformation, you know, when the New York Times says, like, has their corrections and errors and oops, you know, we had the wrong birthday or age for somebody, that's misinformation. They just had the wrong information. And you will hear, well, all right, so I was recently at, this was for Andrea Stewart Cousins and Shelley Mayer were talking at CD16. They had a town hall, right? And wow, the anti-vax people are really in full throttle, right? Is this, so this was a person who's like so in my face that I was like, okay. And she was probably happy I did. Like, yeah, right? So, is this misinformation or disinformation?
Disinformation.
Do you think? But she believes it with her heart. Doesn't make it true.
Yeah, it doesn't make it true.
Doesn't make it true. This is a hard one. She believes it with her heart. This woman believes this. She's not there saying, I'm gonna mess with Andrea Stewart Cousins. I'm gonna mess with her agenda. But she has been affected by a lot of disinformation. Okay, the social media world. Renee DiResta got her start studying disinformation from when she was looking for a school. She lives in San Francisco, for her young kid, like looking for like preschool, and in San Francisco, and she, you know, she's a data person, and she was looking online on Facebook, and this was probably, I don't know, 8 years ago, whatever, and she would see these communities that, as she described it, non-organic growth, like how did they mushroom so big overnight, right? And that was the first tip-off. Like, this community isn't growing. You know how it took a while to get like X number of Facebook followers in each of our indivisible groups? Like, that's normal growth. When something has like 20,000 overnight, like, no. So this, you know, it's up for debate. It's disinformation. It's not right. She believes it with her heart. She has really been affected by a lot of the world of disinformation that's out there. Okay, and those are very staged. They go after people. I read this on the other day. The anti-vax disinformation people go after people who have just lost a child. That's how they recruit people who are going to be really emotional and raw and really kind of give it their all. All right, like that's nuts. When you're doing that, you know you're not spreading the right information, right? So, all right, so this is the lie told 1,000 times becomes the truth. How much do we see this with Donald Trump? So this is what some of this disinformation is, right? Remember, we're not in Russia anymore. We've come back to the United States. We're here at home. Okay. So let's think about RHA and our candidates that we're going to need to support around the Reproductive Health Act. Okay. So the issue that's out there is that the content, the sheer difference in content created by the far right outweighs, okay, so this is like super right-leaning website content, right? And these are the top links on Facebook, right? So this is the information that's getting spread around out there virally, right? So this pink one is far right. Purple is like non-ideologically aligned, like, I don't know, CNN or something, like just, you know, on the topic of, and this is the left. That's us, right? Yes?
What do you mean by content?
No. Using jargon. You're so bad. I could talk all day to my clients. Delirious this way. Content is, you know, the stuff that Renee DiResta was saying we can create so freely. So it's stories, it's videos, it's tweets, it's articles, it's blog posts, it's stuff that you post online that then other people can share, right? So content, the ad for this event is a piece of content, right? So, but the far right invests a lot of time and energy and resources, people creating this stuff, so that there is a lot to then spread around. Way more than we have, right? Remember, the lie told 1,000 times especially becomes the truth that there's nothing competing with it, right? The far right blows out the mainstream and the progressive content. Also, when you look at the top links on Facebook, so the stuff that gets shared. So the right is also much more active in moving this stuff around, sharing it with friends, making sure it gets out there. And they're paying, just like the Russians who were paying attention all the way from St. Petersburg at the opening of a library in Houston, like, right? That's paying attention to the news. I don't know, did any of you know that they were opening this library? We're here in the United States, my friends in Houston probably didn't know, okay? So they are paying attention to the news, and at prime moments, they push stuff around, right? So that's There's a group, liveaction.org, it's this one's third from the left. Super prolific. They are out there. This live action was started by Leslie Rose. No, not Leslie. That's sorry. Somebody else, Rose. It's on the next slide. When she was 15 years old, rabid anti-abortion 15-year-old started this. Okay. And so, if you then amplify it, right? So you push out the content, you make it trend, you make it true. All right, so the whole cycle Renee DeResta talked about. All right, so within minutes, probably seconds of RHA passing, and you had happy Democratic senators, yay, we passed it, all smiles. Okay, click. Late-term abortion is now legalized in New York. Late-term abortion is now legal, capital punishment is illegal. Blah, 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 blah. It's okay to give a lethal injection. We're in the midst of a spiritual battle. Our nation will resolve it one way or another, okay? This stuff was being jet-propelled across the internet within minutes of that law passing. So much so, there's Laura Ingraham, right? So these are some, again, what we call far-right influencers. People who have a gazillion followers. So when they share, it's like, everyone gets it, and then they share, and then boom, 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 right? So we got CBS News. Now, they retracted this. But for a little while, New York passes law allowing abortions up till baby's due date if the mother's health is at risk, right? But okay, so we have CBS now telling this story, then they retract it, but then, you know, that was news. So that was on People's TV. People who never look at social media, you know? So now that I've made everyone depressed on this Thursday evening, what we do, right? There are things we can do. All right, so I'm gonna talk about macro and micro kind of approaches to how you fight this. All right, first of all, how's it being spread? A bot, a troll, or, you know, your neighbor, right? That's bar. Is that your neighbor? All right, so bots are actually easy because they're software, all right? Because they're software can figure out if they're bots or not, right? And so they're detection tools. What to do if something's a bot? Ignore it, right? Resist the impulse to share it, no matter, and remember this? Oh my God. And he was such a little bastard, right? And I shared that one too. Right? How could you not? Look at this kid, all right? That was a bot amplified, and then we're all apologizing all over ourselves, and he's looking like a goody, you know, Mr. Good Boy in his cardigan sweater on like Good Morning America, like the next week. And oh, those liberals, all right? Okay, so there are tools that you can plug in to, if you are on Twitter, that you can add. There's Bot Check and Bot Sentinel. And I should have said this at the very top. There's a website that I created that kind of goes along with this content that goes into these different areas more deeply. And that's on the last slide. And on the first one, it's disarmdisinfo.com. So and we'll send it around to people. So there are more instructions on that. But there are bot checkers. So if you have that, if you install one on your browser, when you think something's looking funky, you can kind of click the button and then it gives you. Okay, so bot analysis. Like, okay, so this one, I was like, really? There's something just too much about her. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I think of the logo. It's like, really? Really? Racist! It just didn't feel right. And you do develop, like, once you start hearing and thinking about this, you will, hopefully, all of you will now look kind of the more suspicious gaze and stuff on social media. But she really bombed. We are woman here. She bombed on the bot check analysis really fast. So all I had to do, what bot check does is it installs this little bot looking thing, And so when you're on Twitter, you just click it and bang, 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 wow, she's probably fake, okay? Okay, and
It
what you
doesn't
do-
work on other platforms, just Twitter?
This is Twitter, yeah, because Twitter is really the zone where bots happen more. I mean, bots interact with Facebook, but Twitter is a more open environment, so there are more tools that you can that have been developed that allow you to go into Twitter and that you can attach as add-ons and stuff like that.
Facebook doesn't have those.
No, and you kind of think they should be able to as well. Is it? Yeah.
And how much time people spend to watch or tweet and everything else, average person every day? How much time?
Depends on the person.
Yeah, but then, you know, if they do this all the time, then how they gonna make the money? When are they gonna go to school?
Good
What
question.
did they
Why
learn?
what about Trump? He's tweeting all day.
But he's
long.
afraid, you know.
Yeah.
And this is
But
one
remember,
thing.
bots, we are is not actually a person,
Right.
she's software pushing this stuff out. So there's not a person here. There's a room full of, they have these rooms with like a gazillion iPhones like lighting up, and they're like pushing stuff out. Okay, that's a lot of bots working and cross-working off of each other, right? So you spot it, you go, this one doesn't quite look right. It was the logo on this one, alright? It was just, I don't know. Really? I mean, I know we're the resistance, but really? Okay. And then I checked it, right? My animated slides. And then I reported it. And so you click on the little follow button or the little 3 dots right next to follow, and you can report. That's one thing. So, did it go away right away? I don't know. But that's what you do. That's your civic duty, right? When you see something that's fake. Alright, trolls. Alright, so here are our indivisible troll friends. Okay, there's no plugins for those. Remember, trolls are people, not software. And Facebook is getting worse, not better, about giving us tools, actually. So there's no plugins, but what you do is you look at the content, right? So you spot it. Now, again, the logos. It's the logos. It's these logos that are like, I don't know. They scream like fake or downloaded. And that's one of the ways you check it, right? There are tools, and I have a whole thing on this on the Disarm Disinfo site. There are tools you can use to see how much an image is used in other places on the web. And so like if you download this fist or this thing was actually from a car shop, the Resistance car shop somewhere, right? And they just stole it from there and they used it, right? Sometimes with people, you'll find out like a politician, someone who was running for something said, oh man, I was followed by somebody. And you know, like you do a search on the image, it was actually like some woman who worked at like Bank of America. And so it's like not the woman that is, you know, is trashing this person, right? So you spot it. With this, it's the content, okay? Because there aren't tools. So the things I look for here, these logos, right? The art, right? The non-original profile image. The content is particularly polarizing. Remember how I was talking about Antifa is like catnip for Trump guys with guns, okay? So you see, and how many of us ever on Indivisible Westchester are we posting like, yeah, Antifa, like never, right? And so like when I saw that on the We the People march, that was like, not good, right? Bad troll, not just a dopey troll, but like a really malicious one if you're doing that, right? So you look at content that's really going to be polarizing, right? You know, and also content that's designed to get people to respond. Because remember, they're phishing. They're using these communities to try to get people to like do their rallies when they're like somewhere else, right? And so things like, you know, who would you endorse today? Like you saw a lot of these, like on these fake sites, and then they're trying to get people to state their preferences, because then they can pit them against each other later. They did a lot of stuff around Bernie Sanders. Okay, they did a lot with the gay community and Bernie Sanders. Okay, the Russian trolls. And you look at the grammar, if it's Russian, you know, and So it's, you do have to develop a sense for that, but then, again, you report these. Facebook discussions, so now we're kind of, this is like another thing to have to deal with. My advice to people on Facebook discussions is avoid them if they're really polarizing. And I've seen some of them are concerning in our community around the primary, okay? Here's the thing, when we had Renee and Justin in Yonkers, where we got to on this is that not all conversations need to happen on Facebook, and that's probably not a good place necessarily for certain conversations to even happen. So let's not have it there. Let's, what about like having a cup of coffee and talking about the different candidates face to face? There is stuff you will say when you're not looking at someone that is just nasty. And we see this, and even a lot of our indivisible Facebook groups have like, okay, we're all like, you know, peace, nobody's gonna, we're all unity here, right? People have their preferences, we're all freaked out, we all can't imagine like, oh my God, no, we can't have 4 more years of Trump, and the one that I like is gonna be the one who's gonna win, that's the only one who's gonna beat him, right? So we're all in that state of mind, okay? And we're all right and we're all wrong. It's like, we don't, because we don't know.
Is that the brainwash?
Well, there's that too, but it's more like we get so into our, because we're freaked out. Me too, right?
But then where is the police in the government like that?
What?
In this kind of
Oh, this?
Yeah.
Oh, this is
in
just
general.
fake stuff.
In general, like a government control, the policing and like that. This is in the free world, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, well, in the U.S., okay, they've got us, all right? Our freedom of information, our right to self-expression is kicking us right now in this, right?
And the government is not.
So the lie equal inconvenient truth.
Well,
It's
No.
propaganda, and we should know how to spot it.
yeah, and are there things that, well, we'll talk a little bit about the big picture.
I just interject, I was at a meeting presented by someone, and I forgot now, but with the government, the federal government, and cybersecurity and whatever. And they are not trying to do anything to protect us from disinformation, because that's not what their job is, and they can't. There's no way.
It's
How do
very,
they-
very limited.
How do they decide what's good or bad for people to say? So it's just not happening, and it's up to individuals.
Well, that's why we're all here tonight on this rainy Thursday, right? Because it's social media literacy, and then you all spread the word, right? And then when people like pass junk and educate other people. All right, so there is stuff out there that is so incendiary, all right, so let's talk about having those Facebook discussions. Let's talk about really getting into it with people, like who don't agree with us, all right? And this comes, when I was originally doing this talk in Albany for New York State Indivisible, this guy, Patrick Madden, who's at the Indivisible Binghamton, and he's created an app, which I'll show you in a second, but he gets into it more, okay, and he has a rationale for that. I personally don't, and that's I just don't go there. But, okay, so which of these pictures has more cows? Okay, which one? Left, right?
The one with all the cows.
Okay. And there were people, okay, not just President Trump, who would give you 1,000 reasons why there were actually more people here.
Yeah.
Okay?
My buddy Sean.
Okay. And could you talk them out of that? And Sean would probably go, the one on the left, right? But,
All right.
so that's the argument, right? Is that an argument worth having? Patrick Madden from Indivisible Binghamton will say, sometimes, but you don't kind of give yourself over emotionally to it. Like if you can kind of maintain a distance, if you can take a healthy step back, right? You can simply present facts. Then you can say, a lot of people know these facts to be true. Because, and he doesn't say it's because he wants to change the mind of Sean, right? He's not trying to get to Sean. He's trying to get to the 10 other people who may be almost Sean's that are looking at that feed. That's all. Okay, so there is a potential good, but man, that's an energy suck, okay? Because you have to
Be very mindful.
you have to be really mindful, and it takes time, and then you have to compose it, so that even while you want to kill them, you're kind of sounding really rational. But this is an approach, and he has done this, and he's, because of all those other people silently seeing this that you don't know. And that if there's just crap out there, there's just crap, right? Right, and this is Patrick's app, okay? So Patrick created an app, and this is something that I think we may want to think about trying locally. It's a little late for Vedat, though maybe not. You still have what, 5 weeks?
Well, to early voting or
Oh,
not?
crap, that's right. All right, so it's his active resist, it's Twitter. And it's a resistance swarming app, right? So he's very guarded about who he gives it to, but other indivisible people. And basically, let's say hypothetically, we have a candidate who's really gonna get pummeled around stuff around abortion issue, right? And let's say we know there's election coming up, and they are just gonna be spewing crap all over the place on Twitter. Okay, because this is that battleground. And they're going to be saying, don't vote for this guy because he's, up for abortions happening after the child's born, right? Which, that's out there. And you want to be able to slam back the truth, okay? CD16 Indivisible had some great myth, fact, graphics about the RHA. So you want to just plop that up there, right? And that can drown out some of the noise. This worked well. I don't know if any of you worked on Brindisi and Claudia Ten. It was just up in Binghamton, right? So this is right in his hometown. This woman was she was like, I'm more Trump than Trump. Claudia Tenney, she was a horribly evil person.
Terrible.
This guy, Anthony Brindisi, ran against her, a bunch of us went up, Candace knocked doors, blah, blah, blah. But Patrick also worked with a group of people because it's a small enough scale. You don't want to try this against Trump. He's got 50 gazillion million followers, right? But Claudia Tenney, she didn't have that many. It's like Julie Killian, when she was going up against Shelley Mayer, and all that crap came out every day, all the time, right? That would have been a good one for this, because she didn't have a gazillion people, nor do our people locally. Right? So when the senators are all coming up, we may want to think about this, because some of them are going to get hit on green light and RHA.
So what is it exactly?
So basically, you have a campaign. So let's say every one of us in this room, we're on, think of a candidate, who's going to get it?
Harcum.
Harcum.
Let's say, yeah.
Right? He's in this, okay. So let's say we're all friends of Pete Harcum on this, and we get an account that's to support Harcum. Right? And we're all on it. It's like a chain. Well, it's like a hotline. And whoever he's running against, whatever.
Rob Astorino.
Hey. So
I'm trying to keep it
decides
interesting.
To run. Oh, Rose, right? Rolex Rob is running. All right. And spewing crap, like we know. Okay. So all of us are on this app. Astorino spews crap, and bang, we all reply. Okay, so that starts, and then say we had a couple hundred people in indivisible groups doing this, and I think that's what they did with Claudia Tenney, so that all of her crap, I'm more Trump than Trump, got drowned out the minute she said it.
Is the response from
It's from real accounts.
but onto their site?
Twitter, you're just replying
this
to
is
their
just
tweets.
Twitter.
It's
Okay,
on
it's
Twitter.
not Facebook.
It's not
Okay.
Facebook, it's
Okay.
Twitter, right? That it's one approach. right? So this is the Twitter war.
But can't you be blocked? I mean, if they know that you're not a supporter, can't they block you from receiving their
They
messages?
can block you, but then you can also make a lot of noise about, you can retweet their tweet, and what you can do is you can do a lot of noise in support of Pete Harcum. Okay, so you can also make it very pro Pete Harcum. You can anytime he posts something, you can get pinged, so it all gets 1 million likes and it gets propelled around.
So does the way it works, it basically gives you an alert so you know to respond?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That's basically all, and it's I would say it's a micro. It's kind of macro, but it's really more micro, because it's around a candidate, probably a set of issues, something like that, and you're more likely. It's less to like slander Killian than it would be to be ever in support of how great Shelley is. Okay, all the time. So it's more that kind of messaging, and she's not gonna block us for that. Okay. So it's just to keep your side of the argument louder than theirs. All right.
So there's a precursor to this that I'm aware of in Cohoe, where I'm active. A lot of folks are just not social media savvy. Don't know how to do Twitter.
Okay.
Or don't want.
Right, or
a lot of
don't
people-
want to learn.
Then that is not the tool. Then there are other things you can do.
Okay.
Okay.
If there's anything related to Facebook, maybe you could share that, because even the non-savvy people are starting to get on Facebook.
Well, Facebook is a little bit of a different story because they're more of a closed box. Twitter's more open.
But there's something about a literacy of Twitter that would really be good. I don't know if it's true.
Here's a question that I pose. I'm really jury's out, okay, on this. Like, this is a tool. I'm kind of, this is less my something, it's being taped here. I love everything. It's some people have trained a bunch of activists on Twitter, and they set up an account and they basically use it for these things. And they use it very directly for this purpose. Okay? Is that a good use of time? I don't know. Right? That's a question to ask. Do we want to invest in that? Or, and there's some other possibilities, right? But if you have a group that, now some people have picked up Twitter, and he has, he'd be an interesting person to actually have a podcast interview with.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Okay, because he trained people, and they use this kind of in a positive way in this campaign, and it's an example of that. All right, it's one of the few. Yes, Mir?
So you can do it where you target an issue, like, for example, the anti-vaxxers have targeted Shelley. And every time she and Andre's Stewart cousins have the town hall, they're there with their posters and they're freaking out and everything else. And she has asked us to really respond to that, to call and support, to, post
Support
whatever,
the truth.
in support of her and in support of her position. Not necessarily facts, but supporting the things that she's done. And so you can kind of target it that way.
See, the people who protest call all the time. And I had to tell people in Indivisible New Rochelle, after they passed that raft of legislation that we were all so thrilled about, call them and tell them you're happy. Because the people who are pissed off are calling them nonstop. And they are tallying this stuff. They need to hear from people, and Democrats suck at this. We're like, okay, next, let me, go think about something else. And we need to be that active and engaged. Okay, so I would say use this in support of somebody.
We had that here when the Health Care Act was passed, the abortion, scenario changed. And we had in Westchester, I don't know if it happened down county, but up county, all of the town hall meetings were swarmed by protesters with their signs and everything. But I thought that was organized by the Catholic Church, at least up here.
Michael Grace.
I thought it was organized by Michael Grace.
Well, in the Catholic
But
Church,
he organized the church to come, because
And also in the newspaper.
he brought his church.
It happened in Putnam County too.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was told it's the same guy who the police asked to leave many, many, many times,
Yep.
appeared at every single town hall.
Yep.
Yeah, no, they will protest loudly. And again, remember like with the RHA on Facebook, they're out there screaming and yelling, where are we? Right? In fact, let's see, all right, there is a little story of that, but, okay, so how can activists play a role? Now we're going more to the macro side. Okay, that was micro. Like, I'm gonna fight you back, right? Guerrilla warfare, I'm gonna get. So there's apply pressure to the platforms to advocate for legislation, right? Legislation, I'm gonna talk about this quickly. There's not a whole hell of a lot you can do, all right? There are a couple of angles, and we're certainly be interested in people who are interested in this. California has passed stuff around campaign disclosure, right? Campaign disclosure advertising. Facebook is really getting worse, actually, with this, apparently. There's, so, about, like, having to, disclose the source of an advertisement, right? There's the Honest Ads Act.
I'm
that's,
sorry, can you get into that a little more? If a campaign puts an advertisement up, they need to say it's from the
yeah,
campaign.
yeah.
But if somebody puts up a fake,
Yeah, I mean, it's legislation, and I'd have to, I have more notes on this, that I'd get into. It's a little bit of a, we can certainly follow up about it.
and that, would that include PACs and things like that?
Well, yeah, it's extending it, if possible, or extending who gets protected. Like, who's allowed to kind of advertise anonymously, right? It's tightening up some of those laws.
I early on, with my Indivisible group on Facebook, I was able to boost posts. Now you have to go through clearance. You have to send it to your judge, and I
Have to get
still haven't
certified.
gotten through all of their checks and balances. I finally gave up. I said, forget about it. So it's not that easy. But
They
tightened
have
it.
made it harder, but the people that are good at cheating it are really good at it. So there are ways to cheat it, and it's tightening up some of these. Apparently it's like so impossible in the state of Washington to like post a political related advertisement that people don't even try. Okay, so you wanna create that kind of environment, right? If you can hide behind it, then why should it be there at all, right? There's also around developing media literacy in children. Okay, there's some really good examples. Finland, right, they're right next to Russia. They have an incredible curriculum that the United States consultants developed for them that is interwoven into their educational standards, okay? Now, here in the United States, they don't like going to legislation telling them what to teach in schools and blah, blah, blah. But we could also make resources available for teachers and make curriculum available, because a lot of teachers are freaked out. Huh?
That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Just to have it for our children, but for ourselves too.
Yeah.
And Americans created the program for Finland, you said.
And we don't use it, but
Well, school boards probably won't let them in
Yeah.
many places.
Okay, as a retired teacher, I have to speak up. Part of the curriculum is learning about primary sources
Right.
versus secondary sources. That is a part of everybody's curriculum, okay? Now, what are those primary sources, and the slant of those primary sources is a different thing, okay? But it is part, and in fact, I know a cousin of mine was teaching a course at a college on ferreting out what is the truth, and look at your sources and all of that. It's definitely there. It needs to be developed more. Resources for teachers would be a wonderful thing.
resources for teachers that don't make them have to do this work.
Exactly.
Right, and kind of, and professional development stuff around it, so
Right.
they don't have to figure it out themselves.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's why I'm giving a talk at Lehman in the School of Ed, okay, for that, all right? So, having that be something where the resources are funded. All right, so that's something we could do, all right? Because it's about social media literacy, right? It's either regulate the platforms, that's a heavy lift. We're coming to that at some point, but it's a long ways away and we don't know what it's gonna look like.
Because kids believe everything that they see,
Right. Yeah.
basically. I mean, at certain ages, you know, they don't have that filter.
No. Yes, Mayor?
Can you speak about the, you know, like the guy with the shoes at the airport, you know?
Oh.
We're never going to, you know, no one's ever gonna fly a plane into a building. And then they're done that, you know, no one's ever gonna have chemicals in their shoes. We're always, you know, attacking after the fact. We've got to anticipate the next great thing, and that's with this particular, adolescent,
Yeah, the curriculum kind of gets people to start thinking there. Yeah, instead of, how many of us have been taking off our shoes? And remember the shoe bomber?
Uh-huh.
That's what that was all about.
well, they're targeting very vulnerable groups, like one of the ones they're targeting now are adolescent boys.
The far right, yeah.
Adolescent boys, many of whom come from progressive households.
I have an article on that, cause I was reading stuff that was freaking me out. Okay, I read this stuff all the time, about the kind of the whole networking and the recruitment online of like adolescent boys, you know, kind of lonely, feel a little out of it, you know, girls don't like me, you know, and like, and you're kind of right, and you're by yourself in your room. And this one kid was saying it's like 5 clicks away from doing your homework to like,
Yeah.
you know, white supremacy, basically. And there's a lot of that going on, right? So there is stuff we can do at the state level around developing resources that doesn't dictate a curriculum. I think that's where there's often pushback. Applying pressure to social media. They really don't like to look bad. Remember Mark Zuckerberg? He was just going to connect the world. He's like a good guy, right? And he's not had a good year. All right, so his year sucked, and they hate bad press, so they do respond. And here's the thing: we're all in New York. We could be in Iowa, and it'd be harder. Okay, we can like storm the gates because their offices are right in New York. So if it were to become egregious enough, we're good activists. We know how to do that, right? There is incremental change, and this is a little bit of a story with live action. Okay, and remember the anti-choice people. Okay, so Pinterest, because they were spreading false content, took it down. That's nice. That's progress. Right? However, they have a coordinated defense, all right? And remember how fast they were at the RHA? They were that fast with this too. And again, the anti-abortion people are social media experts. Who's this woman? I keep forgetting her name now. Lisa Rose, right? She's the one who like started this thing when she was 15. There she is, yakking away. Abortion's never medically necessary. That's actually not true, right?
Right.
And so that was detected on Facebook by the content person, because they're, you know, they say they're reviewing, and I guess they were, and inaccurate. So that it got taken down. Okay. However, with her gazillion followers, because she is the social media queen of anti-abortion, this was posted all over the planet. Facebook is censoring the right. You know, you've heard this stuff about how the social media platforms are really anti-right, like anti-conservative. They're really liberal-leaning fake media, whatever. So that got blasted all over creation, okay? Within nanoseconds, because this was all happening online. Then, you know, lo and behold, surprise, it gets over Fox News. Facebook rates anti-abortion video as, quote, false. Right? It was false. And then there's Ted Cruz. They got Ted involved because they're good at this. They got 4 senators to respond, and bang, it went back up, even though it was false. Okay? So, where are we?
Yeah.
Okay, where are we to say, oh wow, Facebook, good stuff. You finally, they want praise, right? They've had a crap year, right? Thank you for taking down this false crap, right? That's you know, that's just spreading disinformation, you know, about women's health. Thank you for taking a responsible position. Nowhere.
How do you find out about that?
Well, here's the thing. This is next to impossible because it's really coming from the other side. But if we had our Brad Parscale, remember him? If we had our Brad would be paying attention to everything Live Action's doing, just like they're paying attention to everything the New York State Senate was doing that day that they passed the Reproductive Health Act, and 2 seconds later, before there was a blizzard of thank yous from all of us, there was a blizzard of like, New York, you know, kills babies, okay?
Yeah.
Because there's no strategy. We're not putting our energy into having a strategy. We're just kind of, you know, we're looking for our ammunition.
We had a Republican town councilman who's up for election actually post, now that you can kill babies, we're gonna start killing the elderly and the infirm.
Okay,
Yeah.
and a lie told 1,000 times. Those Democrats, they'll kill old people. Okay? So the thing is, yeah, like none of us are looking at what Live Action is posting, probably, for like, unless we want to drive ourselves crazy, right? But our Brad Parscale would be. That's their job, is to look at that stuff and see what's going on.
Costs money.
It costs money. I mean, we do have some money, right? But we have to prioritize. One of the things is, okay, so I was talking to Planned Parenthood 2 weeks ago. The board needs to, you know, nothing moves a non-profit to take action than concerned donors, people who give money, and board members, okay? But if they don't know to ask for it, how are they gonna do that, right? So we become more an educated consumer. Part of surviving in this post-truth era we're in is fighting back this crap. She did it online. It wasn't like she did it in a closed room and none of us could see. But we'd have to listen to this crap endlessly in order to know that it was happening.
I first encountered this about 8 years ago. There's somebody I know who's very, very, very right-wing conservative. And I got angry at some of the stuff he was posting on Facebook, and he said to me, "Why are you getting angry at me? I'm paid to do this." And I'm like, what? That was my first indication I had ever heard of anybody being paid to post this crap, and that's what's happening. People are being paid to put this stuff out.
People are paid
in
money.
the United States, here.
Yeah, but you know what? It is part of the. It's like you know how like TV came into being and then people made programs. It's the same thing. But the thing is, remember Renee took us through the assembly line, right? This stuff is really easy and free. Like you can just make a video with your phone, post it, and then bang, you've got content, right? So we have to invest, and we've got to tell, you know, the people and the organizations that we care about to pay attention to this stuff.
So are you suggesting that Indivisible, for example, we should be doing that? We should be there fighting back?
No, not individually. I think that's a waste of energy. We should be advocating for the groups where we are donors and we're very involved. Groups like Planned Parenthood, groups like the Green Light people, to say, look, what's your strategy for fighting back? Because you know you're going to get it. You know what's going to be another big one? The census. That's going to get smashed. Okay, so where is their budget? Where is someone going screaming? I'm on the Westchester County Complete Count group, right? Go scream to George, because I'm on it, so I kind of go scream about where's our budget for anti-disinformation on that here. Okay, because it's coming. All right, so activists can ask for this stuff and call nonprofits, call Planned Parenthood. Believe me, they get a deluge of calls from people. They're gonna, you know, they're gonna listen, right? You call, you're a donor, right? The Westchester PBA trashes a candidate that we're supporting a lot.
Explain
Damon
who
Marr.
that is, the
Huh?
PBA. Explain what the PBA is.
The Police Benevolent Association of Westchester County Police. Okay, Damon Marr questioned the allocation of funds because there's a lot of funds going to corrections. The population was going down. He's a county legislator. He's one that I'm supporting. And so just got under people's skin, okay? The highest paid workers in this county, I might add, got under their skin. That he would question the allocation of budget. So they have been trashing him on Facebook. If you go to their Facebook page, it's like a anti-Damon Marr troll site, okay? Mary, the other day, because we give to the New Rochelle Police Benevolent Association, got and asked for a donation, okay? So we could say, screw you, I'm not gonna donate, or we could say, no, we actually care about the New Rochelle Police Benevolent Association, but we're gonna take this opportunity to tell you as a donor that I am seeing this stuff and it is not okay, okay? People listen to the people who give them money.
It's true.
Okay? People listen. So, okay, I'll give you your donation, but know this, that I'm watching, that it's not okay. We know you're not the Westchester PBA, but we know you talk to them. And that we've noticed that you're not encouraging dialogue in our community about normal things. Is that okay? Right? And so you call it out as donors. And you can say, Planned Parenthood, where's your strategy? What are we doing? Right? We need to be able to bolster our candidates, right? We can even ask in the legislative area, right? What are we gonna do to help our candidates fight these things off? Are we just gonna let them go out there and fend for themselves? Good luck. You know, or is there going to be a strategy? I don't know. If enough people ask, maybe there will be.
Well, that was the one thing, because in talking to Andre Stewart Cousins at the Planned Parenthood Gala last night, and we were talking a little bit about this and the talk that you gave, and she said that she was surprised that there wasn't a coordinated response from Planned Parenthood. It kind of took, they got caught off guard because she was expecting they would come in with the support, and they didn't have the offense, so then everybody was just caught flat-footed. And she says if an organization like this isn't prepared, I mean, think about lesser organizations.
Yeah.
And one of the most contentious issues, you know, there is in the United States.
But, you know, at, the Planned Parenthood that we gave, they are prepared, but they're doing focus groups. You know, they're going around the country and seeing, you know, what slogan would resonate most with people. So they're in the dark ages around fighting this stuff. When actually that was essentially what Kim said.
You know what Brad's
hire
doing?
Brad Parscale. Find yourself a Brad Parscale.
You know what Brad's doing right now? He's launching 500 different anti-impeachment ads and testing them in real time at different audiences. Okay? In real time right now on Facebook. And algorithms are playing back. Look, this is not, and it's not like he's got some access to something that we couldn't have if it were prioritized. Right? And some people say that's the dirty war. Well, no, that is what it is. Right? So resistance swarming at the local level, right? You give real information. You know what I was struck by last night at the Planned Parenthood thing? We have incredible stories to tell. You know, it's amazing when the truth is on your side. All you have to do is tell it, but you have to tell it. We have incredible stories of what that organization does for women's health, that it's not just all about abortions, but countless hundreds of thousands of other stories, right? That a lot of people would amplify, but it has to get coordinated and they need to prioritize it. Okay. So, so at the board level, that's so continuing to apply pressure, I realize this is going on. So at the board level and at the donor level, and candidates, tell them this is important. This is important to me that you have a strategy. If you don't have one, go get one. Right? Because, meanwhile, back at the ranch, Brad, Facebook's ad policy is a gift. Okay? They're amassing a war chest. Okay, so this is the Trump. This is where they're putting all their money. Okay, remember how everyone was laughing? Oh yes, no ground game. Hillary, we've got field ops. We're really all over this, right? And he had they were doing it on Facebook, all right? And this I read this morning. Trump spent $2 million on Facebook for official impeachment defense task force. You know what kind of crap that's gonna be pushing, right? So this is, and look here, keep an eye out for this. Look at what happens to the word whistleblower over the next couple of weeks. Let's see how that morphs, and be conscious about it in conversations that you have and on social media, and use that term very carefully, right? Because it's gonna get pulled out of, a whistleblower is gonna become a liar, like.
Spy.
A spy, a
Spy,
traitor,
spy,
a traitor,
yeah,
yeah.
okay? And so, no, you need to, there are whistleblower laws, okay? Remember like Patrick Madden who fights back with the truth? No, we have whistleblower laws, that's what this is, and you quote it. Okay, you know.
But maybe by the time he will go to jail, you know?
Definitely help. So, all right, so that's it. That's the website. Thing is, we just have to keep learning and advocating. We can't ask for those things that we don't know to ask for, right?
You know what I think about this, you know, reproductive